I'm Javon Pelt, treasurer of a 8-unit condo building in Chicago. It's a new development, 8-unit condo building, and we started to do some self-management because it was a newer building. We didn't think we'd have that many problems. And since everyone was pretty vocal in talking to each other, we had an open forum on this association. It seemed to be easier to self-manage. Being a newer building, an interaction between the residents of the building, thought it would be an easier setup. Tried it originally, didn't really work out well because there are a lot of things that you don't think that come into play when you have an association. Self-management, probably the biggest thing is keeping task on, collecting assessments from individual unit owners, problems that arise as far as if it's a maintenance issue, picking a maintenance company, cleaning service. We had an issue with the roof, issue with the parking gate. These things take a lot of time, and they take more than what you would think from an individual perspective, as far as even just scheduling an appointment to meet with different vendors to get an appraisal or an assessment of what the work needs to be done. It's really time consuming, and unless that's your full-time job and you can put your full attention towards that task, can be pretty a hard experience. I guess being easy accessible is probably the key thing we were looking for. Someone who had reputable experience not only with contractors, but just the different service providers that you need within an association, from maintenance to snow removal, any particular issues with the building. Monthly inspections, that's something that we never got before, so that's good to have. We had never done the income tax, so the referral out to do the yearly income tax. And just managing the bank accounts and the bills. I remember one of the real reasons why we also were drawn to Connected Property was in the beginning we weren't given a set locked-in time frame. It's pretty much on a trial basis. If this works out for you, that's fine. If not, there's no penalty as far as we're not going to penalize you for pulling out. So for us, that was a good thing because since we had been shopping around looking at different management companies, that was the initial draw because you do feel like, okay, we can give them a trial run, and if things don't work out, we can go somewhere else. But that issue never really came up. We pretty much have been locked in since day one. Probably the biggest impact we've had as an association is being able to have a contact person, someone who you can call and you can get access to as far as when you have an immediate issue, from a plumbing issue, a roofing issue. The developer in our association has 2 buildings within the condo unit structure. We work as 2 separate entities, but the other association shared the same association name. So we had an issue where a lien was placed against the property and all our funds just because under the same name incident. So that was a big hassle with trying to contact the lawyer's office and get all the proper paperwork submitted and straightened out to look. We were 2 separate associations that we had nothing to do with the funds that were being held on the other association standpoint. So the one benefit with having Connected as a company was they were great as far as following up and getting in there and find out what the real issue was, because the lawyer's office is not going to have too much communication with you. But the other turnaround was at having them supply the proper paperwork and get the whole situation cleared up rather fast. You have total accountability where you're not chasing around an individual resident for an assessment. Being able to have the fallback on the books and be able to see the monthly bills, what's been allotted, being able to keep up with a budget. We had a budget, but it was like a semi-working budget, so it was fluctuating, but to having sound structure to know where your expenses are, if you need to raise assessment, just making sure you're totally covered, and at the end of the year being able to file the taxes and have all your records at one central location instead of having a president has certain things, treasurer has certain things, secretary has certain things, but you have all these things in one house unit and it's able to flow better at the end of the year. I would say from a customer service perspective, the one thing that you always want in this type sort of relationship is you want to feel like that you're being heard and your problems are being attended to. You know that management company typically has many other properties, but you don't want to seem like your issue isn't as important as someone else. So from a customer service perspective, we always get rapid feedback, even if it's not a total solution or the answer isn't at that time, but you do get some feedback, whereas you're not constantly calling the company. They're pretty much following up with you, whether it's a phone call or it's an email. But you do feel like a service is being provided to you and that you do count as an association, whether you're small or big, that your problem is something that's important on the forefront. But our experience with Connected Property has been a good experience. We've been very surprised at the customer service, but also they're well received as far as from our owner's perspective across the board.